Okay, welcome back to the second part of session 1. Okay, let's have a look at modeling the real world. Okay, so now we're getting into the meat and potatoes of starting to learn how to program, which is good. So what I could say about modeling the real world is you're already really good at it, kind of. For as long as you can remember, you've got an understanding of everyday things around you, right, which you've picked up as a child. And it's pretty unusual for you to meet new things that you would struggle to classify or to find difficulty in understanding. Okay, with the exception of going to school or going out of your way to learn new things. Pretty much you've got a good grasp of stuff. You know what a tree is, you know what a car is, you know what it does, you have an idea of how it works. But really, why would you have any idea of how to model these things in software? I guess if you've played with Lego or plasticine, or like Fraser's doing, working in an engineering degree, you might have some notion of how to go about taking something that actually exists and then making a facsimile of it. Maybe you would. Okay, let's have a look here. Next slide. All right, fellas. What are these things here?
Shoes.
The shoes. Okay. Yeah. Do you want to talk to me a little bit about shoes? What are they for?
Wear them on your feet mostly.
Mostly, yeah. Okay, I like that qualifier. Yep. We have all occasionally put our shoes on our hands to play table football or some such crazy shizzle. Yep. What else do they do apart from us putting them on our feet? What purpose do they serve?
They protect your feet from the floor, spiky things.
Yeah. That's good.
Keep them dry.
Keep them dry. Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. They're a shoe.
Depends what type, I guess, because different types have different functions.
Yeah. Okay. Different types of different functions. So, what do you think the different types and functions are of this lot?
Well, the heels there is more for like aesthetics and to look good, whereas the I don't know, like the running trainers are for comfort.
Yeah.
For running and for better like shock absorption.
So this one's a running trainer with, I guess, with shock absorption.
Yeah.
And these are probably the same, aren't they? Or similar.
Yes.
So the ones with the toes are like climbing shoes, probably, or something.
Ah, okay. Right. Yeah,
I don't know.
They've got toes. You seen those climbing, Mike?
No. Actually, I have seen one person wearing them before, but they're not climbing shoes.
Yeah, I think they are just funky running shoes.
Yeah.
Supposed to mold to your feet or something.
Okay. What about this thing here? This Converse.
It's fashionable.
It's fashionable. So it looks like a sports shoe, doesn't it? A running shoe, but it actually isn't.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a dress item. In fact, it's just a bloke's version of this, right? Of the high heel.
It's one way to.
Well, it's just a dress shoe, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah, okay. Let's go to the next slide. So, how can we describe this shoe, and what are its attributes? So what I mean by its attributes, what are the features of this shoe?
It has a strap.
It has a strap. Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah, it has a strap. Anyone else?
It's made of leather or something similar looking.
Okay. Yeah.
It's blue.
It's blue. Yeah.
It has good ankle support.
It has good ankle support. Okay. Cool. Actually, you got more answers from you gents than I was expecting. That's great. So if you're trying to describe the shoe, there are various aspects we can look at. We can look at its purpose, and we know from our earlier slide that one of the purposes was to protect our feet from the ground, spiky objects, I think Alex said, and one of you other gents said about keeping your feet dry. I know, Fraser, you described it as blue, so we can model a shoe based on its purpose and its color. Okay, its style. Yeah, we talked about that. We had high heels, didn't we? This one, I called this a sandal. One of you said it's got a strap. Adele said it's a T-bar. That's a woman's world, eh? It's a shoe, mate. Yeah, just put it on your feet. What about its parts? What are the words that they use on shoe boxes to describe shoes?
They talk about the sole, don't they?
They talk about the sole. And this is a very good religious question. Does a shoe have a soul?
This is not funny.
Well, you say that, but you and I are both laughing. I can't see the other fellas because there's one person at a time. But yeah, okay. So, is the shoe truly alive? Does it have a soul? I also see the word leather uppers. All right, that's just one of those phrases that's stuck in my mind. A leather upper. What about its context? Well, we talked about that, didn't we? The context of the shoe, which I guess is kind of tied to its style. Look at the context is,
Yeah.
well, let's have a look. And what abilities does it have? And the thing that uses it, it's usually the customer, isn't it? So bear with me one sec. This is what I mean by context. Oh, for goodness sake. I mean, that's this red thing here is a very different context to this little grippy foot thing, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
I guess when we're thinking about things, even though we both know, or we all know that these are shoes, you wouldn't wear one of these red shoes to a funeral, right? Maybe you would if you're kind of some kinky woman, but you'd have to be an extra kinky bloke to go to a funeral wearing those red shoes to try and pick up someone who's grieving. I mean, that would just be insane. And I can see Alex taking notes. They'd be giving us no ideas, Jace. Okay.
Sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt you. I'm going to have to shoot off now for that meeting.
No problem, well, son. And we'll keep going, and we'll pick this up. I'll post the video later tonight.
Yeah. I'll look at the recording. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Thanks.
Cool. Cheers. See you guys.
Bye, Fraser.
Okay.
Then number 3.
Let's have a look at describing this shoe. So we know it protects the soles of the feet. We know it's kind of blue. We think it's a sandal, depending on who we are. It's got a leather upper and a plastic sole. Apparently, Adele said it's not a plastic sole. Context: it's usually worn casually. Maybe it's office wear. You probably wouldn't wear it in a boat. Neither would you go out doing a bog run through some mud. Doesn't really have any abilities, and it's the human being that uses it. Okay, what about this next one? Well, protects the soles of your feet. Yep, it's the same thing. Makes you feel good, depending on who you are, and maybe used to attract a mate. So the purpose is kind of the same, but there's hidden reasons to it there. Shiny red. It's got a high heel. Look at this. It's got the leather upper, the plastic sole, and the stuck-on stiletto heel. So this is a shoe of 3 parts. Yeah, it's for dress wear and parties, not for funerals. Yeah, we talked about that. Still doesn't do anything. And it's usually human females that wear them. It's good stuff. So these are all shoes, but they're all kind of different, aren't they? We think that's a running shoe. It's got big padding there. That's a running shoe. That's an office shoe. That's a fashion item. Okay. That's a good question. Discuss.
It's footwear. I don't know if it'd be considered a shoe necessarily, I guess.
Okay. But you wear it on your feet, and it helps you move. Gives you some kind of protection. It's blue.
Well, does it give you protection?
Yeah,
I don't
I'd
know.
say it would.
Well, I wouldn't want to kick a Portuguese man of war without wearing a fin.
Yeah, I suppose so. Don't think I'd want to kick one anyway.
No, nor me. Yeah.
But definitely not with that one.
I know if it was Alex, he'd put on the red stiletto and try and take it out for dinner. Yeah. Okay, so is it a shoe? It's not really what we mean.
Nah.
But it is a footwear. It does offer protection, and it does have parts, and it does have a context.
Yeah, but you'd say the purpose of a shoe is for walking around, whereas a flipper's for swimming.
Excellent. Okay, good. So whilst we know it is, we could class it as footwear because we wear it on the foot.
Yeah.
We know it's not actually a shoe, even though it has very similar properties. But there's a key difference between walking on land and
Swimming in the sea.
Yeah. And I guess similarly, you wouldn't call a studded mountaineering boot with spikes on it a shoe either, because you wouldn't wear it in the same context of wearing a shoe, right? You wouldn't wear one of those down the disco.
No.
Then you wouldn't wear one of these down the disco. What about this thing? Is that a shoe?
No, I don't think so.
No.
I mean, it doesn't. It's a false foot, isn't it, with a false leg, and it's providing your man's knee some protection, but it's going too far. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So, talk to me about this.
It's a 6-sided dice. Die.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's red.
Red with white.
It could be fair or an unfair die, but we can't tell that from a picture.
Okay. Yeah. So it's white. Sorry, did one of you say it's got white dots?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's red and white. Yeah. It's a die.
It rolls, or you can roll it.
Okay, so those are its abilities, I guess, or its actions. Yeah.
Yeah. Its purpose is to roll a number.
Sorry, say that again.
Its purpose is to randomly roll a number if it's a fair die.
Yeah, you spotted that. That's very insightful. Its purpose is to generate a random number.
Mm-hmm.
What are the boundaries of the rounded of the numbers? Sorry.
1 to 6.
1 to 6. Yeah.
Numbers. Well, assuming the other 3 are.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Assuming it's as we would expect it to be.
Yes.
Yeah. You're spot on. We can only see three of the sides. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's an interesting point. Okay, so its purpose. Well, Mike said it. It's to generate a random number between 1 and 6. See how we're starting to model what this thing is?
Mm-hmm.
You know as a kid from playing Snakes and Ladders that it's a dice and what it does, but I bet you've never lain at bed at night going, do you know what? Those dice are really interesting, right? What do they do? They generate random numbers. Bloody hell. Maybe I could use it for doing the lottery. And so long as it's only a 6-figure lottery, there's a good chance we're going to win. Okay, it's got a color. Yep, it's red and white. And I didn't notice the white in it until Adele said it's red and white. Oh, yeah, it is. It's style. So, rounded corners. I guess, Mike, you said we would assume it's a fair die, i.e. not weighted in any way.
Mm-hmm.
How many sides has it got?
Well, as Alex pointed out,
guessing it's 6.
We're guessing it's 6.
Yeah. And it is a fair guess. Has it got any moving parts or any other parts?
No.
It doesn't have any internal workings or anything, does it? Unless it's a weighed dice. And even then, it probably wouldn't move.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's quite a simple device, this. All right, its context. Well, we know its purpose is to generate a random number between 1 and 6, presumably. Granted, we can only see 3 parts of it. So what context? In what context do we use one of these?
Board games or
Board games, yeah.
gambling.
Casinos.
Yeah.
Gambling, casinos, yeah. Okay, nice. But we wouldn't use this random number generator for the national lottery in Britain. because
No.
the bounds of those random numbers are, is it 1 to 100 or 0 to 50, or anybody know?
50, I believe.
Right, 1 to 50. Okay. So yeah, we'd have to struggle to get much use out of that as a random number generator for the context of entering the lottery. What are its abilities? Well, Mike, I know you said you could roll it or throw it, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Or drop it.
Yeah.
Effectively get it to generate a random number. There's another thing you can do with it as well, which is
Spin it.
yeah, but that's going to effectively do the same thing, but you can also just place it, can't you?
Mhm.
You can't see that.
Yeah.
You could place it on whichever side you wanted. I know I'm showing a cylinder here. I should have had a dice, but I can't find one. Okay, so you can roll it or throw it or spin it or somehow cast the dice to the die to give us a value, or you can mindfully place it showing the value that you wanted to show. And who uses it? Well, it's us, isn't it? But the question is, actually, as it stands, who is the client of the dice? Who's its customer? Who's going to use the thing? Gamblers, game players, people who run their lives by making decisions based on the outcome of a dice. There's a book called The Dice Man. What a terrifying thought. Should I go to the pub or should I go and kill someone? 6 equals pub, 3 equals murder spree. Roll the dice. Yeah, I mean, that's a crazy way of living your life. But that's the context, right? Not the context. That's the thing that's using it is the stakeholder of some kind. So let's go through this. Didn't we just do this?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Okay, I've got a duplicate slide. Nice. Okay. So having looked at the shoes and having looked at the die, here's a process for efficiently modifying an object. We need a name for it. Makes sense. You don't just keep calling things thing, do you? We need to know what its purpose is. Granville. We need to know what its purpose is. Its physical attributes. Do we really care if we're about to model a dice in software about the curvature of its edges? Because they're rarely a uniform cuboid, are they? They've normally got rounded edges to aid rolling, and so that you don't gouge your kid's eye out when you throw the dice at them in impatience, and you know. But do we think that's, for us in our Monopoly game, is that rounded corner, is it of any importance at all?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. No?
Yeah.
Maybe very mild aesthetic reasons, but
Okay.
functionally.
Yeah, not functionally, but it would annoy me if they
Okay.
weren't all the same looking.
Ah, okay. That's interesting. Okay.
You know, if you've got one that's at a right angle and one that's curved, it's just going to look stupid.
Right. Yeah, that is important. You're right. Yeah. No. Okay. So, but the lesson here is when we're modeling things, there are some things that are going to be important to us. Now, we'll never roll a digital dice in the real world. So we
no, absolutely. I'm just being pedantic.
It's rounded. No, but it's. I mean, this is why we're having a conversation, which is we're never going to physically roll the digital dice, so it doesn't need the edges. We could make it look like it, but it doesn't actually. We don't need to model that angle on the corners. Has it got any parts or components? Well, in this case, it doesn't really. It's actions. Yeah, we know we can throw it, roll it, spin it, or in other ways cast the die or dice. And we can also place it to choose the number as opposed to using it for its function, which is to generate a random number. And when we're modeling it, well, the context for its usage, we know for us it's going to be for Monopoly. It's not going to be for gambling. And this is helping us make our decisions when we start modeling this in software, right? So this is a process for modeling the object. Oh, there's that slide again. So its name, yeah. So we're going back here to looking at these headings, all right? We know it's a die, plural dice. Its purpose, generate a random number, and I'm equally pleased and gutted that you already figured out that it is to generate a random number. That's some good insight there. Generate a random number from a given set of numbers, 1 to 6 in this case. Important physical attributes. It's got 6 sides because we're currently only talking about one of these dice. Its available values are, well, we can see 3, 5, and 6. We're assuming that it's 1, 2, and 4 on the other side, and that's a fair assumption, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, it is. I'm deciding it's a fair assumption. We all got good experience of that. We don't need to go and ask a dice specialist if the other numbers are in fact 2, 1, 2, and 4. Red background, white values, parts, components, nones, actions. Roll it, throw it, generate a random number, or place it. Okay, good. We've been through all that. And the context is to use it in a game where we require 1 to 6 random numbers. So I'm kind of specifying some work for us here. There are other dice, and we can model them using the same techniques, but I'm only highlighting the differences now. We know that there's still a die. What was the other one? We know what its purpose is, to generate a random number from a given set of numbers. It's important physical attributes. Well, actually, the number of faces on it is important, isn't it? Because it's linked to the number of values that we might get. So a D6, as they're called, will give us up to 6 values. You could have a dice with 1 on each side, but that would be kind of stupid and pointless. But interestingly, I was reading yesterday, if you want a 3-sided dice, sometimes people just use a 6-sided, and they put 1 on 2 sides, 2 on 2 sides, and 3 on 2 sides, and you've effectively got a chance of rolling a 1, 2, or a 3. So they're kind of hacking a dice. Available values, various. Look at this one's got a 0 on it. And context, well, it's for different games where there are more complex requirements. Now, looking at all these dice, they appear to have contiguous numbers, i.e. they start at the lower limit and increment in steps of 1 to the upper limit. But I guess it's possible to have a dice which only rolls odd numbers, right? Or only rolls even numbers, or only rolls prime numbers. How mad would that be? What would you use that for? I've no idea.
Well, in prime numbers.
But the point is, just because you've got a 6-sided dice, you can't assume that the numbers on it are 1 to 6. It could be apple, orange, grape, banana, pineapple, and another one, meat pie. It's a surreal dice. Okay. So how are we going to model this in C#? Right, so we use a blueprint with a special name, okay? And when you know what a blueprint is, right, fellas? Yeah. I don't know if people see them much these days. I do have an image of one. And the blueprint for a dice or a die or anything in C#, it's called a class or a class definition. And what we do is when we're defining that class, apart from those techniques we just looked at, we need to think about what are the properties of the object, i.e. what are its member variables or the properties of it, number of sides, color, values, and what are the verbs? Well, we looked at these before, didn't we? The verbs are also in C# called methods. Some people refer to them as functions, but generally in C# it's methods. Generally in JavaScript, they're functions, right? They're kind of interchangeable. I'm sure some geek somewhere knows what the difference is, but to me, a function and a method is the same thing. In C#, they're called methods. Okay, so we've got a class with various members, which are either nouns, being the properties, or verbs, being the methods. We know that a class is equivalent to a blueprint. We have these. Do you know what? I think I may have needed to edit out some of these slides. I beg your pardon. We're going through it again, just displayed differently. Public properties, nouns, private fields, These are nouns that contribute to the workings of the thing. Now, with a die, we already know that there are no internal workings. But with a car, we know that the public properties would be, for example, the fact that it's got 4 doors. But the private fields, as they're known, are things that you don't interact with, like the engine or the brake cable. You don't actually know about those or care about them, so they're marked as private. We think of them as private fields. Public methods, so these are things that the client or the context can use. So I can roll a dice, but again, there's no internal workings, so it's a pretty straightforward thing. So let's have a think about a toaster. When I use its public method of pushing the lever down, there are some internal mechanisms, right? Some private gadgets inside that draw electricity and heat up, and when the time is gone, the thing pops up, and you don't do anything with those. They're the internal workings. They're the private methods of that object. They contribute to the internal workings of the thing that we're modeling. So let's go back here. Let's have a look at it. Our class name, I'm going to call it a D6. It has got properties and fields of the number of sides. It's got a color. We already know it's got a low value. We've got a range, right? 1 to 6, presumably lowest value, highest value, and a current value. The dice has always got a current value unless you somehow suspend it in an indeterminate state. Schrodinger's die. Is the cat a die or a dice? We don't know until we roll it and observe it. Okay, this is getting nuts. I was going to put a picture of a shoe with a 0 on one side and a 1 on the other, and I was going to make a shoe a form of 2-sided dice. But I ran out of time and went to watch telly. Okay, then that would really be crossing the beams, right? We go from a shoe to a dice and then a dice shoe. That's proper mental. Would it be a shoe or would it be a dice? It's both. That doesn't make sense in the real world. Okay, and we've got methods. We can roll it or we can place it. So we're nearly there with our class definition. Oh, look at this. It's some code. Okay, glossing over this namespace. We are defining here our class. We want other things to use it, so we're marking it as public. We're saying this file here is a blueprint, a class that describes a D6 die. And these bits in green are code comments that won't throw any errors. They're just there to describe to you in a bit of friendly text what's going on. So this first comment here says scope data type member name. Well, the scope here is private. The data type is int for integer, which means number, and the member name is number of sides. Okay. Similarly, scope, this is a private internal workings. It's a number, and so forth. A string, for those of you that haven't done any programming before, Fraser mainly, a string is the computer word for a word. So my name is a string, Jace. Blue is a string, red is a string. Current value is again an integer, and an integer is a whole number. And because these are private, as the class designer, I have decided that these are internal workings and no one needs to know about them. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, we'll see. Here we have verbs. We've got the roll and we've got the place. And I haven't written any code here to roll the dice. And I haven't written any code here to place the dice, but what I am saying is that these are public things. So this is the public interface that people will use when they're using the digital model. You say, here's a D6, and really the only thing you can do with it is roll it or place it. Well, rolling it, we don't know what the outcome's going to be. But when we want to place the dice, we need to tell this code what value we want to be placing it. Right? I want to show a 6, so I pass in the 6 here. And for the sake of Fraser here, it's public because other things want to use it. Void is another special word which means When you call this method in code, it doesn't give you any value back. It will do something, but there's no value returned to you. Okay. It just changes the state, presumably, of this class. And finally, we've got a very special method here called a constructor. And the main features of this are, it doesn't have a return type of void or string or integer or anything. It is its own return type. When we want to create a die, we call the die's constructor. And that will give us an instance in memory of the die. So this is like saying, when we want a car, we take the blueprint and we follow some instructions and get all the materials, and we can create a car by basing it on the blueprint. Well, this is the blueprint, but it's got this little special feature here which says, hey, I can give you a copy of the car or a copy of the die based on this definition here, this blueprint. Any questions so far?
No. Jace, I was just going to say, I may need to head off 5 minutes early.
Okay, well, I'm going in 10 minutes.
Yeah, I may head off now if that's all right, just because I've got to drive across to Hayward Heath, which I didn't account for.
No probs, no probs. Alex and I will finish this last 5 or 10 minutes, if that's right with you, Alex.
Yeah, it's good.
Actually, it's a good point. We've been an hour and a half and we're about to write code, so it's a great place for everyone else to catch up with, and we'll do another session hopefully this week to finish this session 1.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good job. Okay.
Okie dokie. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
In a bit.
So, Alex, we can see these are the blueprints. Clearly, the blueprint isn't the thing. It's the design of the thing. Okay. I don't think I need to labor that point too much, because I think you understand that. The blueprint isn't the thing, it's the design of the thing. And similarly, the class isn't the thing, it's the design of the thing. So here's the design of the thing, and here's the thing in action. That we've got our hello world from earlier, and when we've written our code, we'll say, I would like a variable called my die. It will be of type D6. So what I'm saying to the software system here, and this is as much for you as it is for Fraser, who might be a bit further behind in this. This C# syntax is using this D6 blueprint here, create an instance of it called my die. And I do that by finishing the command by saying, make me a new D6. So I'm saying, using the blueprint of the dice, make one called my die using the blueprint of the dice. Okay, it's funny syntax, but this here, look, is actually this method, this constructor method, public D6. That's what I'm doing here. I'm actually calling it. Okay, and we'll see this in action when we write the code. And that's actually it, my friend.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the recording. You can, if you're feeling adventurous, look at the recording and try and make an instance of this dice and try and play with the console app, the scratch pad, and see if you can get it to work. If you do that, you'll be ahead of the boys, which is fine. But that's what we'll basically do in the next session when we're all together.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll probably do that in a bit. I think we've got to go and do something now. But...
Yeah, no probs. You know, there's advantages to doing it. There's an advantage to waiting. Good. Nice to see you. Thank you for showing up. Hour and a half. Right. That's pretty good. Cool. Okay. I'll see you next time. If you could put your availability up, that'd be useful.
Yeah, we'll do. All right.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.